The morning had started like any other in the high-rise office overlooking downtown Chicago. Keyboards clicked, coffee cups steamed, and the marketing team buzzed through their weekly routine. But at precisely 10:13 a.m., everything changed. A sharp alert rang out from the client relations desk. A critical presentation file for the firm's biggest client had gone missing from the shared drive. It wasn't just a file, it was the final proposal for a multi-million-dollar deal. The room shifted from calm to chaos in seconds. Managers scrambled. Accusations flew silently through tense glances. The deadline loomed, and the fear of losing the client settled like a fog over the team. Everyone was looking for someone to blame. In the middle of it all, Emily Carter stood up. She had always been the quiet one, reliable, diligent, and never in the spotlight. She cleared her throat and spoke, her voice calm yet shaking slightly. "It was my fault," she said. The room froze. Heads turned. Some gasped. Others simply stared. Emily. Of all people. Jason, the new hire sitting 2 desks away, looked down, unable to meet her eyes. He knew the truth, that he had accidentally deleted the file in a rush of anxiety that morning. But Emily said nothing else. She took the silence that followed like a storm and sat back down, knowing full well what it would cost her. And yet, she didn't flinch. Because sometimes doing the right thing means doing it alone. Emily sat alone in the small HR meeting room, her hands folded in her lap, eyes steady but tired. The silence around her was heavy, broken only by the ticking of the clock on the wall. Across the table sat 2 HR managers and a senior executive, their expressions unreadable. They asked her to walk them through the incident, what happened, how, and why. Emily recounted the events without hesitation, taking full responsibility for the missing file. Her tone was calm, her words clear, even though she knew every sentence she spoke would be another strike against her record. But what she didn't say, and what no one in that room knew, was that Jason, the newest member of the team, had been crying in the break room just an hour before the mistake. He had shown her a photo of his baby daughter, hooked up to medical tubes, fighting for her life. His mind wasn't at work that morning, and in his panic, he had overwritten the file. Emily knew what losing this job would mean for him. So, she chose silence. "We appreciate your honesty," one of the HR managers said, typing notes. The decision came quickly, 2-week suspension without pay and a formal warning added to her file. Emily nodded, thanked them politely, and left the room. There were no goodbyes waiting outside. Jason couldn't even meet her gaze. But still, she walked out with her head held high, because she knew what she did was right. High above the busy office floor, in a corner office lined with glass and sunlight, Daniel Royce, the CEO of the company, flipped through a report that had just landed on his desk. At 42, Daniel had built his empire with precision, ambition, and an unshakable instinct for reading people. He had seen hundreds of disciplinary files before, but something about this one, about Emily Carter, stopped him. She wasn't the type to make reckless mistakes. Her record was spotless. In fact, she was one of the most consistent performers in the department. Why would someone like her suddenly mishandle a major account? Curious, Daniel leaned back and scanned through her past evaluations, emails from satisfied clients, and team feedback. All of it painted the picture of someone who was more than just competent, someone quietly exceptional. But something else caught his eye. On the day of the mistake, a pattern of internal messages and security footage showed Jason visibly distressed. A chat log revealed him asking Emily for help just minutes before the file disappeared. The dots were connecting, and they didn't point to Emily at all. Later that day, Daniel called Emily into his office. She walked in, composed, expecting nothing more than a follow-up on her suspension. But instead of launching into the incident, Daniel asked gently, "Why did you say it was your fault?" Emily paused, then simply said, "Because he needed the job more than I needed to be right." That one sentence stayed with Daniel long after she left the room. The company's weekly town hall was usually a routine affair, updates, announcements, and the occasional birthday cake. But this Friday felt different. Employees filed into the auditorium, murmuring about a special announcement from the CEO. Even Emily, recently reinstated after her suspension, stood quietly in the back, assuming it had nothing to do with her. On stage, Daniel Royce adjusted the mic. Dressed in his usual tailored suit, he looked calm, but there was a rare warmth in his voice. Today, he began, I want to talk about values. Not the kind printed on the wall, but the ones that show up when no one's watching. The room grew still. He continued, last week, we disciplined someone for a costly mistake. She accepted it with grace, never pointing fingers, never defending herself. But what we later discovered is that she wasn't guilty at all. She took the blame to protect a colleague. Not because she had to, but because she chose compassion over credit. Whispers rippled through the crowd. Emily's eyes widened. Emily Carter, Daniel said, scanning the room, please come up here. Hesitantly, she stepped forward. Faces turned to her in shock, some in shame. Jason, near the side wall, looked down with tears forming in his eyes. Daniel smiled and turned to her. Emily, from today onward, you're not just a project manager. You're my new business partner. The room exploded in applause. Emily stood frozen, overwhelmed, not by the title, but by the quiet recognition of a selfless choice that finally, beautifully, spoke for itself. 1 year later, Emily sat by the tall window of her new corner office, the same view the CEO once had. But she hadn't changed much. Her desk was still neat, her tone still humble, and her smile still gentle. The title on her door now read Emily Carter, Partner and Director of People Empowerment. It wasn't just a promotion, it was a mission. Under her leadership, the company had launched new initiatives, support programs for single parents, flexible hours for caregivers, and an anonymous assistance fund for employees in crisis. Emily had turned her moment of sacrifice into a movement of compassion. Across the office, Jason now worked as a team trainer in the mentorship program Emily personally created. The day she offered him the position, he had cried openly, apologizing for his silence, for his fear. But Emily had only smiled and said, you've already repaid me, by becoming someone others can count on. Daniel, now semi-retired and focusing on charity ventures, often dropped by just to watch her work. Once, he told a colleague, promoting Emily was the best decision I ever made. She didn't just rebuild trust, she redefined leadership. And every time someone asked Emily how she rose from suspension to partnership, she gave the same soft answer. By doing the right thing when it was the hardest to do. In a world that often rewards the loudest voices, Emily's quiet courage reminded everyone that true power lies in kindness, and it changes everything.